Yeah, recently, Sarah, the Edutopia blog wrote an article exploring some of the common education practice myths that are not backed by research and subtle changes that teachers can make those practices more effective.
I'm
One of the
excited to hear.
myths, yeah, right. We all love education
Burst
myths.
some bubbles here.
One of the myths, one of the first bubbles that the article aims to burst, is the idea that allowing students to doodle on their paper during lessons can improve their focus and concentration. The research says otherwise. Quote, doodling, like all drawing, is cognitively intensive, involving complex feedback loops between visual, sensory motor, attentional, and planning regions of the brain and body. Because our ability to process information is finite, drawing and learning about different things at the same time is a simple question of too much. Instead, a 2019 study suggests that students should engage in, quote, task related drawing, in which students sketch out what they are actually learning, such as representational drawings of cells or tectonic boundaries or creating concept maps. Turning to the science of literacy, and I know this will interest Sarah, the article also discussed studies that have provided a sharp critique of the common practice of round robin reading, in which a whole class follows along a text while students read sections consecutively, which is heavily utilized in many an ELA classroom. But the literature has found that the method's benefits are hard to identify. A recent review found, quote, no research evidence that supports the claim that RRR actually contributes to students becoming better readers, either in terms of fluency or comprehension. Instead, experts say that partner reading, or pairing students together to read the text aloud to each other and then having the students discuss or answer questions, is a more effective version of literacy instruction relative to the traditional RRR approach. I know I gave you a couple myths there to dig into, but certainly with that second one, love to benefit from your expertise in literacy education on that. But
Oh, I'm
hopefully
sure
you weren't
anybody who's
doodling during that.
I wasn't, although I am fidgeting. So it's like, oh, I wonder if they have fidgeting on there because I'm a fidgeter. So I think okay, so we'll punt the softball to the literacy because I'm sure you know the limit does not exist to how much Sarah can talk about that. But as far as the drawing, so I had kind of some mixed feelings about that, if I'm being honest, because I do know of several students who even in their IEP, it said that drawing was something that they needed to help. And then I realized, well, the study probably was not talking about students with, with a specific disability that needed accommodations. Because my first thought is, I can tell you, so many of my students with ADHD, doodling or drawing was something that they needed to kind of quiet the
Yeah.
external noise so that they could focus on what I was saying. So that was my first kind of, I don't know about that one, but I would be interested to go back to the research and see for whom those recommendations were made. Right. So I'm going to put a little bit of a suspicious kind of, I want to be a skeptical consumer of that. The second, I think if you're watching this, I put my hand up immediately. I cannot tell you how many classrooms I have gone into and given that exact like that exact statement to stop the round robin reading and start partner reading. So
Oh,
partner
nice.
reading, I'm a huge fan of. Even in high school, anybody who sat in my high school literacy courses can tell you, yes, Miss Fye would make us sit and partner read even at the high school level. And the reason for that is just let's think about even at the very simple basic level, let's think about engagement. Okay, round robin reading is probably something that we were all really familiar with in our own elementary school experience. You might even think of like popcorn reading, right, where it's like, okay, Ryan, read that paragraph, now you pick the next person to read a paragraph. And I think for some time there were some educators that believed that this was a good method. I'm not going to, but I really had to stop myself when you were reading, when it said, when, or from speaking out, when you said something about the research shows limited, and I was about to say, or non-existent, right? There is no link to increased
The
reading
article was phrasing it
capacity.
a little diplomatically for sure.
Yeah, I was holding back because I have very negative feelings about round robin reading. And so even let's talk about it just anecdotally, right? We probably all experienced it as kids because it still happens a lot. And let's talk about engagement. Let's say conservatively, there's 25 children in a class and one child is reading the paragraph. How many children are actually engaging with that text? Usually one, the one who's reading the paragraph, and possibly the kid behind them who knows they're going to have to read and is frantically reading their own paragraph and saying, what is the question the teacher is going to ask me about that? Right.
Oh yeah, I
So
used to
the
count
engagement
ahead.
level, yeah,
Like I'd
it's
count
like,
the
okay,
number of
I'm in the
students and count
fourth
the
seat. So
paragraphs.
I have to, exactly, I have to, oh, let me read that fourth paragraph. That's what she's going to ask
And
me
then
about.
that's the only thing I'm reading.
Exactly. And if you're, a child with anxiety, maybe you're freaking out about, oh my God, when is it my turn to read? It's going to be so stressful. So it's so much more about like the theatrics of that classroom than it is about student engagement and student learning. So I mean, that's the example I always give when I'm talking to teachers about why round robin reading is such a pet peeve of mine. And there are just so many incredible things that can be done with partner reading. I'll stop because we really could go go on for hours.
I was intrigued by what you mentioned about how these techniques are even useful up to the high school level. When I think
Oh,
that
absolutely. I've used these in high school as a classroom teacher myself.
that's really fantastic. Like that perspective a lot. Really, really kind of great stuff. And I think we are starting to see at least a turning of the tide a little bit. I mean, from what I've seen, I don't work in this space like you do, but I have heard more literacy teachers say that, round robin reading is kind of fading away.
Well, and I'll be honest, I do think a lot of literacy instructors are aware of that, but that is not the only place where round robin reading takes place, right? So, how many science classrooms, social studies classrooms, where if we have to read something, it's like, all right, you start, then you, right? Because a lot of our content area teachers don't have foundations in literacy.